Welcome to my podcast. Today I'll be talking about fantasy hockey advice and players to pick up in fantasy football and fantasy basketball. Breakout players in fantasy hockey. Center, C-Brayden Schenn. C-Brayden Schenn is becoming the player that many people thought he would be coming out of juniors. He has 10 goals, 30 points, 8 power play points, and is a plus 19 this season. Left winger, Vladislav Namestnikov. Vladislav Namestnikov is the forgotten player on Tampa Bay's top line. He has 9 goals, 21 points, and 8 power play points this season. Right winger, Boeser. Boeser has arguably been the best rookie this season. He has 11 goals, 21 points, and 9 power play points this season. Defenseman Joel Edmunsson. Joel Edmunsson started the season not on anyone's fantasy radar. Now he should be owned in all leagues that require at least 6 defensemen. Defenseman Montour. Montour has done a tremendous job of logging tons of minutes in the absence of Cam Fowler. He has 6 goals, 13 points, and 5 power play points this season. Goaltender RB Vasilevskiy. RB Vasilevskiy leads the NHL in wins this season with 15 and has a 2.32 GAA and a .929 save percentage. Next week, I'll be talking about players on the rise in fantasy hockey. Fantasy Football Waiver Wire, players to pick up for Week 12. Quarterback Case Keenum. Case Keenum had 3 consecutive weeks with more than 17 fantasy points. He looks to continue his strong play against the Detroit Lions in Week 12. Running back Alfred Morris. Alfred Morris was the lone bright spot in the loss to the Eagles in Week 11. Expect him to get the same workload as long as Ezekiel Elliott is suspended. Running back Clement. Clement had back-to-back weeks with double-digit fantasy points. He has a favorable matchup against the Chicago Bears in Week 12. Wide receiver Coleman. Coleman seems to have established some chemistry with DeShone Kizer. He just may turn into his go-to receiver. Wide receiver Danny Amendola. If Chris Hogan is out, you can expect Amendola to be the number 2 receiver for the Patriots alongside Brandon Cooks. Tight end Ricky Seals-Jones. Ricky Seals-Jones had a monster stat line in Week 11, picking up 2 touchdowns. He may be worth picking up in deep leagues if you need a tight end. Defense, Los Angeles Chargers defense. Los Angeles Chargers defense put up 25 fantasy points in Week 11 and have a good matchup against his struggling Dallas Cowboys team in Week 12. Kicker Gano. Gano had only 1 week this year where he had less than 5 fantasy points. You can expect him to get anywhere between 7 and 9 fantasy points this week. Next week, I'll be talking about players to pick up in fantasy football for Week 13. Fantasy Basketball Waiver Wire, players to pick up number 2. Point guard Spencer Dinwiddle. Spencer Dinwiddle averaged 11 points, 5.6 assists, and 1.8 3-pointers made on 40% shooting last week. He should be owned in all leagues until D'Angelo Russell gets back. Shooting guard E'Twaun Moore. E'Twaun Moore averaged 16.7 points and 2.0 3-pointers made on 54% shooting last week. He has good short-term value. Small forward Denzel Valentine. Denzel Valentine averaged 15.5 points and 3.5 3-pointers made on 50% shooting last week. Add him if you need a boost on 3-pointers made. Power forward JaMychal Green. JaMychal Green averaged 11.5 points, 4.5 rebounds, along with 1.5 3-pointers made on 67% shooting last week. He is a must-own in a league with more than 12 teams. Center Henson. Henson averaged 10.7 points, 6.7 rebounds, and 1.7 blocks on 67% shooting last week. He is valuable if you need rebounds and blocks. Next week, I'll be doing another fantasy basketball waiver wire. Next podcast, I'll be talking about players on the rise in fantasy hockey as well as players to pick up in fantasy football and fantasy basketball.